ever stop to think that how we categorize people, our personalities, our inner drives, isn't some brand new idea?
Oh, absolutely.
Hmm.
Turns out these ancient systems for understanding what makes us tick, they go way, way back.
And today we're actually going on a pretty fascinating journey to explore one of those sort of deeply rooted perspectives.
It's truly insightful stuff. We're delving into the ideas presented in a recently published book, LESYA Key to Kaivalya.
Oh, right.
It just came out this month, April 10th, 2025, by Mrs. Smita V. Chattur in Pune, India.
Okay.
And this book, the ISBN is 978-93-342-43703, costs about 125 rupees. Its whole aim is to make a key concept from Jain Philosophy LESYA much more accessible.
Accessible, how so?
Well, it uses diagrams and tables quite effectively to break it down. And the book itself is divided into 4 main sections.
Well, sure.
An introduction to LESYA itself, then its relevance today, its place in scriptures, and finally its connection to personality.
Right. So for those of us maybe hearing this term for the first time, LESYA, what exactly is it?
In Jain philosophy, it's often described as the coloring of the soul.
A coloring,
Yeah.
like literally.
Well, not literal color you can see. Think of it more like the shade or tint of your inner being. And it's not random.
Okay.
It's understood to be a direct result of how our soul interacts with something called karmic matter.
Karmic matter. Got it.
It's really a foundational idea for understanding why we act the way we do, what shapes our personalities, and even, how we progress spiritually within Jainism.
So a pretty big concept then.
Huge. And our goal, really, in this deep dive is to unpack the core of LESYA as it's laid out in the book.
Right.
We want to explore its different facets and try to understand what it suggests about how we see ourselves and, well, how we see others too.
Okay, this is where it gets really thought-provoking, I think. The book introduces LESYA using a classic story from Jaina literature.
The story of the travelers and the tree. Yes.
Exactly. So picture 6 travelers, right? They find this tree just loaded with fruit. And each one has a completely different idea about how to get the fruit.
Right. It starts pretty drastically, doesn't it?
It does. One guy says, let's just cut the whole tree down.
Maximum effort, minimum finesse there.
Totally. Then another suggests, okay, maybe just chop off the main branches.
A bit better, but still quite destructive.
Then you get someone thinking, well, maybe just the smaller branches. Another says, no, just the twigs with the fruit.
Getting progressively more targeted.
Exactly. Then someone else is like, why not just pluck the fruit we can reach?
That's sensible.
And finally, the last person is quite content just picking up the fruit that's already fallen on the ground.
In this simple story, it's actually a very powerful way to grasp the core idea of LESYA.
How so?
Each traveler's approach, which is driven by their inner state, their disposition, represents one of the 6 LESYAs.
6 LESYAs, okay.
So the person wanting to chop down the whole tree, that embodies the black LESYA, Krishna LESYA.
Black. Sounds ominous.
It's considered the lowest, the least refined state, marked by a real lack of compassion, maybe violence, intense negative emotions.
Okay. And the next one, chopping the main branches.
That represents the blue LESYA, or Neo-LESYA, often tied to things like pride, arrogance, laziness, being unreliable.
Blue, interesting color association, and the smaller branches.
That signifies the gray LESYA, Kapota LESYA. This one's linked more to sadness, gloominess, finding fault in others, being vindictive.
Black, blue, gray. These sound like the negative ones?
They're often grouped as the inauspicious LESYAs, Ashubha, but then the suggestions get more refined.
Right, cutting just the twigs.
That represents the red LESYA, or Tejo LESYA. This indicates someone who's more careful, mindful of their actions, able to discern between good and bad, kind, generally benevolent.
Okay, so red is a step up, then plucking the fruit.
That's the yellow LESYA, Padma LESYA, a state characterized by kindness, benevolence, forgiveness even towards enemies. Someone who observes vows, has little anger or greed.
Yellow sounds quite positive. And the last one, gathering fallen fruit.
That embodies the white LESYA, Shukla LESYA. This is the highest, most refined state, signifying purity, detachment, treating all souls equally.
Wow. It's quite a spectrum, isn't it?
Yeah.
From total destruction to just accepting what's offered.
Exactly. It's remarkable how these different reactions to a simple situation, like getting fruit from a tree, map onto such distinct inner landscapes, these different colors of the soul.
So the book digs into the word LESYA itself, too. Where does it come from?
It does. It traces it back to Sanskrit and Prakrit roots. The basic meaning is something like light, or more complexly, that by which a living being, the soul, is connected with or burned with.
burned with.
Yeah, or maybe affected by is a better way to think of it in English. The book outlines several key ways LESYA is understood.
Okay, like what?
Specific states or conditions of the soul, for one. Also, the black and other matters think of effects or consequences that arise because of those soul states.
Ah, so cause and effect.
Precisely. Then there's something called atavasaya, which is like a deep-seated intention or psychic disposition. We'll probably need to circle back to that one.
Okay, atavasaya. Got it.
It's also linked to conscious instinct, luster or radiance, sometimes called tej and brilliance, or dipti.
Radiance. But you said these aren't visible colors.
Correct. It's crucial to remember these soul colors are understood as psychic phenomena, not something you'd see with your eyes, despite the color names.
That makes sense. The book also mentions some related terms, things that sound similar.
It does, yeah. It briefly touches on teholesya. Now, this isn't the same as the general red lesya state.
How is it different?
Teholesya seems to be a specific application, like using the energy associated with the red state, but with a harmful intent. Almost like directing negative psychic energy.
Ah, okay. So a specific use case.
Kind of. And then there's LESYA dhyana. This is actually a meditation practice.
Meditation using colors.
Exactly. Using visualization of colors, often linked to psychic centers, to try and balance your inner energies.
So different from the general state of LESYA itself.
Yes. The book makes a point of distinguishing these specific practices from the broader concept of LESYA as this ongoing coloring or state of the soul. It even mentions aura briefly.
Aura, like the energy field some people talk about.
Sort of. It acknowledges the concept, but notes that, from the Jaina perspective, the basis and characteristics of an aura are considered distinct from LESYA. Similar idea of subtle emanation, but different framework.
Okay, so let's get into the details of these 6 states then. The book draws on an ancient text.
Yes, the Uttarahiyana Sutra, a very important text in Jainism. The book uses it to provide detailed characteristics for each LESYA. Should we start with black?
Yeah, let's go through them. Black or Krishna LESYA?
Right. The sutra describes this as the absolute lowest state of mind, characterized by a complete lack of compassion or mercy.
So quite extreme.
Very. Prone to violence, intense jealousy, deep-seated animosity. They act on the impulses associated with the 5 major sins in Jainism: violence, falsehood, stealing, sexual misconduct, and possessiveness.
And it mentions something called guptas.
Ah, yes. Lack of guptas means no restraint over thought, speech, or physical action, just acting purely on impulse. The quotes from 34.21 and 22 really paint a grim picture.
Okay. Moving up slightly, the blue LESYA, Neil.
Still inauspicious. The sutra links this to being proud, haughty, lazy, or indolent, unreliable, hypocritical, also an aversion to religious activities.
Interesting. Less outwardly violent than black, maybe, but still negative traits.
Exactly. The quoted verses, 34.23 and 24, emphasize envy, anger, lack of self-control, leading to deceitful and harmful actions. Still very much caught up in negative patterns.
Then gray Kapota.
This one's characterized by persistent sadness, gloominess, a tendency to find fault in others, being vindictive, boastful, getting overly excited or agitated about small things.
So a real lack of inner balance.
Precisely.
Yeah.
The sutra, verses 34.25 and 26, describes this state as dishonest, base, deceitful, holding wrong beliefs, and filled with hurtful thoughts. Still very much in the negative zone.
Okay, so black, blue, and gray are the inauspicious, or Ashupa group. Now we move into the auspicious Shubha ones, starting with red, teolesya.
Correct. Here we see a shift. People in the red LESYA state are described as careful about their actions. They can discriminate between good and evil.
So more awareness.
Definitely. They're generally kind, benevolent, religiously inclined, and lead more harmonious lives. The sutra, verses 34.27 and 28, also mentions humility, steadfastness, being free from deceit, controlling their duties, and actively striving for good.
That sounds like a significant improvement. Next is yellow, Padmalesya.
Even more refined. Kindness and benevolence are strong here, along with forgiveness even extending it to enemies.
Forgiving enemies, wow.
To a high standard. They observe vows, have very little anger, pride, deceit, or greed. Their minds are generally at ease.
What else characterizes yellow?
Self-control, attentiveness to studies and duties, speaking thoughtfully, not excessively, and being calm. They've subdued their senses, as the sutra puts it in verses 34.29 and 30.
Very balanced, it seems. And finally, the highest state, white, Shukla LESYA.
Yes. And the book notes there are actually 2 levels within white LESYA, both representing a very high spiritual state.
What defines this state?
Strict observance of Jain principles, complete trustworthiness, treating every single soul as they would their own.
Universal empathy.
You could say that. No ill feelings towards anyone. They remain calm and unperturbed, even if abused or mistreated.
Incredible composure.
And the Sutra, verses 34.31 and 32, states that those who perfect this state actually escape the cycle of life and death. They attain liberation, Kaivalya.
So that's the ultimate goal connected to the white LESYA.
It represents the culmination of the path. And grouping them, as you said, black, blue, gray are Ashubha, inauspicious, and red, yellow, white are Shubha, auspicious. That's a key distinction.
Okay, so we have these 6 colors, these states. How does this concept of LESYA really fit into the bigger picture of Jaina philosophy? What's its role?
Well, the book really emphasizes that LESYA acts as a kind of bridge. It connects our inner world, our thoughts, feelings, psychology, with the outer world, our actions, experiences, life patterns.
A bridge between inner and outer.
It influences the patterns of our lives, acts as an agent, prompting alternatives, guiding the choices we make. Its foundation is our mental and emotional state.
Okay.
But importantly, it's also linked to material particles called pudgala. And that connection to matter is what allows the concept to be understood through the analogy of color, even though it's fundamentally psychic.
Pudgala, material particles. So it's not just abstract thought. There's a subtle material connection.
That's the Jaina view, yes.
Yeah.
LESYA is the link between the soul, jiva, and karma. It's constantly transforming the soul's state and, crucially, binding new karma to it.
Binding karma. Okay. And the book distinguishes between 2 types of LESYA.
It does. There's Pavalesa, which is the sentimental or purely psychic aspect. It's described as colorless, odorless, tasteless, touchless, the pure state of mind or emotion itself. And then there's Dravyalesya, the material aspect. This does have properties associated with matter, color, smell, taste, touch. These 2 are deeply interconnected. Pavalesya influences Dravyalesya and vice versa.
So the inner feeling and the subtle material color affect each other.
Exactly. And the book mentions different Jaina scriptures define LESYA slightly differently, emphasizing different aspects, like its role in binding karma, as per the Shakandagam.
You mentioned Dravyalesya having smell, taste, touch. Does the book give specifics?
It does. There's a table 1 that summarizes these properties for each of the 6 LESYAs. It's quite fascinating.
What does it say?
Well, generally, the inauspicious LESYAs, black, blue, and gray, are associated with things like unpleasant smells, bitter or pungent tastes, and a rough or unpleasant touch sensation.
Okay, makes intuitive sense. And the auspicious ones?
Red, yellow, and white are linked to pleasant smells, sweet or delicious tastes, and smooth or gentle touch sensations. It really highlights this idea of the inner state having these subtle, almost sensory correlates.
So if we boil it down, LESYA is presented as this ancient Jaina way of understanding personality, right? Based on whether our thoughts and actions lean towards good or bad.
That's a good way to put it. Auspicious or inauspicious, Shubha or Ashubha. And these tendencies are symbolized by those 6 colors.
Red, yellow, white for auspicious, black, blue, gray for inauspicious.
Exactly. It connects our inner condition, taught by Mahavira, to how we express ourselves outwardly.
Okay, now the book apparently details the process of LESYA. There's even a diagram, block diagram 1. This sounds like it could get complicated.
It is quite detailed, but let's try to break it down. It's shown as a kind of cycle. It starts with something called Odayak Bhava.
Odayak Bhava.
That's basically the fruition of your past karma, the consequences of past actions catching up with you, influencing your present state.
Okay, so past karma kicks things off, then what?
This interacts with your current state of soul, your parinama, and also your fundamental drives or instincts, the kashayas, things like anger, pride, deceit, greed.
Right, so past karma meets present state and basic drives.
Yes. And this interplay leads to achyavasaya. Remember that term? The subtle psychic vibrations or underlying intentions.
Achyavasaya, yes. The deep intention.
These vibrations then influence something called the Teja Sharira.
Teja Sharira, fiery body.
Sort of the subtle energy body, yeah.
The Achyavasaya vibrations get transformed through this Teja Sharira into energy waves, and that is Dravyalesya, the material aspect of LESYA.
Ah, so that's where the material color comes from these energy waves via the fiery body.
According to this model, yes. And then this Dravyalesya influences the physical body.
Oh.
It affects the endocrine glands, triggering hormone release, which impacts the brain. This whole chain influences our emotions, thoughts, and ultimately our conscious impulses or urges.
And these urges lead to actions.
Exactly. They manifest as yoga, which here means the activities of mind, speech, and body. And these activities, in turn, bind new karmas to the soul.
Which restarts the cycle with Adayak Bhava.
Precisely. But there's another loop, too. Atyavasaya also interacts directly with the brain and with chitta.
Think of it like the subconscious mind, the storehouse of memories and impressions. This influences our bhavalesha, the sentimental or emotional aspect, and shapes personality through things like passions, carelessness, lack of self-control.
So Atyavasaya influences both the material Dravilesha and the emotional Bhavalesha.
Yes, and the diagram makes it clear. Both Dravya and bhavalesha together determine the kind of karma we bind. It's complex but interconnected.
Okay, the Atyavasaya seems really central. The book gives it more focus, right? Block diagram too.
It does. Atyavasaya is presented as the very origin point for how karma gets ordained or determined for us.
What influences Atyavasaya itself?
Four main things, according to the diagram. First, the karmas that are currently being shed or experienced by the soul. Second, the soul's actual state, its parinama, at that moment. Third, those primal drives, the kashayas. And fourth, the specific karmas that are active right then.
So it's a convergence of past karma, present state, basic drives, and active karma, all shaping this underlying intention.
Exactly. Think of Achavasaya as the subtle psychic flavor or inclination that dictates what kind of new karma we attract. It's deeply tied to our attachments and aversions, how much we cling to things or push them away.
So karma in Jainism isn't just like fate. It's described as a substance.
A very subtle one, yes. Jadamurta, inanimate and tangible, though not in the gross sense. It's seen as something that literally adheres to or smears the soul, obscuring its natural purity and knowledge.
And how does it get smeared?
Through asrava, the inflow of karma. This happens because of things like non-righteousness, lack of self-restraint, carelessness, those primal drives, kashayas, and our actions, yoga.
And LESYA is connected to this inflow.
Directly. LESYA depends on our flow of sentiments, our havatara. Block diagram 3 on LESYA purification shows this link clearly. High intensity in those primal drives, the kashayas, lead straight to inauspicious LESYA.
Because strong negative drives create negative sentiments, which result in a negative LESYA color.
Precisely. And that state then attracts more negative karma.
So this LESYA being colored materially via Dravilesya is what defines our personality.
That's the Jaina perspective, yes. Personality is analyzed through this dual lens. Dravilesya is the outer material aspect with its associated colors, tastes, smells, touches. Bhavalesha is the inner sentimental state, auspicious or inauspicious.
And they're linked, as shown in block diagram 4.
Yes, the diagram shows the soul's condition influencing both Bhavalesha and Dravilesya. These, in turn, affect the karmic influx and our resulting state. It's a dynamic interplay.
The book also connects LESYA to 5 states of soul, or bhavas. That sounds quite technical.
It is a bit, but table 3 helps. The 5 states are Audaika, karmic fruition, Avshamik, suppression of karma, Shai, elimination of karma, Chayopashamic, suppression, elimination, and Parinamic, natural transformation.
And how did the LESYAs fit in?
All 6 Dravilesiyas are considered part of the parinamic bhava, the natural state of transformation. The auspicious red and yellow Lesyas involve Audayika, Shayopashamic, and parinamic bhavas. White Lesya involves all virtuous states except Upshamic. It shows how these soul states and Lesyas overlap.
Okay, so our inner state isn't static. What about our destiny, our gati? Does LESYA influence where we go after this life?
Very much so. According to Jain Philosophy, there are 4 main states of existence, or gatis: Deva, celestial; Manusya, human; Naraki, hellish; and Tiryancha, animals, plants, etc.
And LESYA determines which one.
It's a major factor. Inauspicious Lesyas, black, blue, gray, tend to lead to the lower, less desirable states like Naraki or Tiryancha. Auspicious Lesyas, red, yellow, white, generally lead to better states like Manusya or Deva.
So our inner color has consequences beyond this life.
Definitely. It's tied to the Achavasaya, the intention behind the Lesya. That plays a big role in determining the future state.
Does it also affect the type of karma we get, like good karma versus bad karma?
Yes. Lesya itself is seen as a form of asrava, karmic influx, and causes karmic bondage. The book explains that Shubha Yoga, auspicious actions of mind, speech, body, leads to punya, meritorious karma. Ashubha Yoga, inauspicious actions, leads to papa, demeritorious karma.
So our LESYA directly influences whether we accumulate punya or papa.
That's the idea. Your dominant Lesya colors the nature of the karma you attract.
And all of this LESYA karma, states of soul, ties into our actual behavior and spiritual growth. There's another table for this.
Yes, Table 4 provides a really useful summary. It correlates the LESYA color with the intensity of Kashaya, those primal drives. Typical behavioral characteristics, the Vava or soul state, types of dhyana, meditation, karma dynamics, and finally the Gunashtanas.
Gunashtana's stages of spiritual development.
Exactly. There are 14 stages in Jainism, marking the soul's progress towards liberation. The table shows how LESYA changes as one moves through these stages.
What are the key takeaways from that table?
A big one is that reducing the intensity of the Kashayas, anger, pride, deceit, greed, is absolutely essential for spiritual progress. You can't move to higher stages without tackling those.
Makes sense.
Also, the shift from gray LESYA to red LESYA is highlighted as a really significant turning point. Moving from inauspicious to the lowest auspicious level marks a major step up.
From negativity to basic goodness and awareness.
Right. And as you progress further towards yellow and white LESYAs, the Kashayas diminish even more, the karmic influx reduces drastically, until eventually, at the highest stages, you transcend LESYA altogether.
So LESYA is a feature of the journey, not the destination.
Beautifully put, yes. Liberation is a state beyond LESYA.
It's amazing how ancient this is. The book connects this LESYA psychology to modern psychology, too.
It does. It points out that this framework connecting Kashayas, yoga, actions, and consciousness layers predates modern psychology by centuries, maybe millennia.
How does it compare?
Well, modern psychology developed much later, initially focusing on mind and behavior, then gradually incorporating consciousness. Jain psychology through LESYA has always considered the inner workings, analyzing mental and emotional states based on whether they're auspicious, shubha, or inauspicious, ashubha.
And the layers of consciousness, how do the views compare there? Table 5.
Yes, Table 5 looks at this. Psychology often talks about cognitive knowing, affective feeling, and conative willing intending. Jain philosophy centers on karma consciousness.
How does that map?
Roughly, it links the purely cognitive aspect to liberated souls. No karma bondage affecting knowing. The affective feeling aspect in its purest form is linked to arhats, or Kaivalyans, also free from karmic influence on feeling. The conative willing aspect is most relevant to us humans still bound by karma, as our will is heavily influenced by it.
And it compares this to Freud.
Briefly, yes. It mentions Freud's conscious, preconscious, and unconscious model, suggesting some parallels in the idea of layered consciousness, though the underlying philosophy is obviously very different.
LESYA is described as a contact element between these layers. Block diagram 6. That sounds deep.
It is a profound idea. Block diagram 6 suggests Jain psychology sees conscious, subconscious, and unconscious levels linked to our different bodies. The gross physical body, adharika, the subtle fiery body, tejas, and the karmic body, karman.
Then LESYA connects them.
LESYA acts as the bridge, the contact element, between these different levels, particularly between the grosser and more subtle aspects of our consciousness and being. Diagram 1 on personality construction also illustrates this layered structure.
It keeps coming back to LESYA as this connector. The book even links it to physics, colors and frequencies.
Yeah, that was surprising. Diagram 2 shows the visible light spectrum. The book notes that the inauspicious LESYA colors black, blue, gray tend to correspond to higher frequencies in the visible spectrum.
Higher frequency means more intense.
The book speculates that this higher frequency might correlate with more intense karmana bondage. It's speculative, of course, but interesting, and it suggests meditation as a way to stabilize these potentially higher frequency, more agitated thought patterns.
And biophotons.
It briefly mentions biophoton emission, the very faint light emitted by living things, and wonders if future research might find a connection between that and LESYA. Purely a research question at this stage.
Okay, shifting gears slightly. How does the book apply these ideas to modern times? Do these inauspicious LESYAs show up in today's problems?
Oh, absolutely. The book argues that the characteristics of black, blue, and gray LESYAs are visible all around us.
Like where?
Conflict and violence, obviously. Dishonesty and deception, think corporate fraud.
Yeah.
Misinformation. Greed and exploitation driving inequality and environmental damage.
Right.
Mental and emotional distress. Negative workplace dynamics. Harmful public policies. Environmental destruction like climate change, even health hazards from harmful products.
So the underlying negative mental states manifest in all these large-scale problems.
That's the connection the book draws. It really makes you pause and consider the root causes, the inner colors behind societal issues.
It's fascinating. Does the book compare LESYA to similar classification systems in other traditions?
It does, briefly. It contrasts LESYA with the traditional Indian caste system, Chattur, emphasizing that LESYA is about individual soul states, not birth.
Okay, so more individualistic.
Yes. It mentions Buddha's 6 classes based on moral deeds, noting similarities but also differences. It touches on the Bhagavad Gita's classification by virtues and divine demonic qualities.
Mahabharata, too.
Yes, mentioning classifications based on happiness types, caste colors, and mental attributes, gunas, summarized in Table 6. It even mentions the Ajivaka school's 6 castes,
Sajivaka.
an ancient school contemporary with Jainism and Buddhism. They had 6 categories with similar color names to LESYA, but the basis was different more about fixed beliefs than the psychosomatic states of LESYA. The book concludes LESYA is really a unique Jaina concept.
Okay, now, the last major section we're looking at focuses specifically on LESYA and personality. How does it define personality first?
It cites the Britannica definition, characteristic patterns of thinking, feeling, behaving. But then it layers on the Jaina view. Personality, seen through Dravilesya, outer, and Pavalisya, inner, encompassing both the soul, jiva, and mado, ajiva.
So personality is LESYA in a way.
Deeply connected. Personality is shaped by our accumulated value systems, samskara, and the intensity of those primal drives, kashayas, which are directly reflected in our LESYA.
What about the building blocks of personality? How does the Jaina view compare to, say, psychology?
Psychology looks at things like genetics, inheritance, environment, body structure, the vascular glandular systems, body chemistry. The book outlines these.
And the Jaina view, block diagram 7.
Jaina philosophy sees the karman body as the primary source.
Okay.
Our past karma, gravirup and bhavarup aspects, influences our physical development, inheritance, and even how we interact with the environment, which involves pudgala, matter. Block diagram 7 shows karma as the root.
So karma is the ultimate shaper.
In this view, yes. It acknowledges environment and physical factors, but sees karma as foundational. It links body structure to consciousness, mentions the endocrine system, and even connects to Ayurveda's Tridosha theory, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, influencing body chemistry and personality.
How does LESYA categorize personality types? Is there a specific model discussed?
It explains personality as the sum of our virtues and vices, rooted in karmic fruition, adhika bhava. Block diagram 8 touches on this. Then it references a paper, Jaina Dharma Kalesya Siddham.
And what does that paper propose?
Diagram 3.
It categorizes LESYAs based on mental state, metadasha, and conduct, ethical shubha or unethical hashubha. This leads to a qualitative division. Worst, pairing red-black, an interesting pairing there, maybe representing active negativity versus passive. Mild, yellow-blue, and best, white-gray. Diagram 3 illustrates this grouping.
Wait, red with black, yellow with blue, white with gray. That seems different from the simple auspicious and auspicious split. It does seem like a different interpretive layer from that specific paper, perhaps grouping by intensity or mode of expression rather than just positive, negative. The main text sticks to the standard 6 descriptions, though, detailing the characteristics of Krishna, black, through Shukla, white, as defining personality facets.
Okay, and crucially, can personality change? Can LESYA be purified?
Absolutely. That's
Yeah.
a key message. Behavior changes because LESYA changes. This happens through various karmic processes: Udarana, premature fruition; Sankramana, transformation of karma type; Udavartana, intensification; Upvartana, weakening.
So karma isn't totally fixed.
No, it's dynamic. And the main tool recommended for purifying LESYA, especially the inauspicious bhavas, sentiments, and calming the mind, morsha attachment delusion, is meditation, dhyana.
Meditation again. How does it work with LESYA specifically?
There's a deep connection. Anguish, distracted, or negative meditation, Arda and Radha Dhyana, actually leads to inauspicious LESYAs. Virtuous, focused meditation, Dharma and Shukla Dhyana, leads to auspicious LESYAs.
So the quality of your meditation matters immensely.
Critically. And that practice mentioned earlier, LESYA Dhyana color meditation, focused on psychic centers, is highlighted as particularly important for self-development and purifying your inner state.
Wow. We've covered a lot of ground there, digging into LESYA from this book. If you had to pull up the main takeaways, what stands out most to you?
Gosh, okay, 2 things, I think. First, just the incredible detail and coherence of this Jaina model, connecting our deepest inner states, thoughts, emotions, intentions, to our actions, our karma, and even our future lives through LESYA. It's such a comprehensive system for self-understanding.
Yeah, and interconnectedness is really striking.
Exactly. And second, the fact that it's not deterministic, LESYA isn't fixed. The emphasis on purification, on practices like meditation, being able to actively change your LESYA, well, that offers a real sense of agency, hope for growth, both personal and spiritual.
That's a really powerful summary. It definitely leaves you with a lot to think about. Which brings me to a final thought for you, the listener. Considering this whole spectrum of lesias, these inner colors, how might understanding them shift the way you look at your own motivations or maybe the actions you see playing out in the world around you?
That's the real question, isn't it? A challenging one to reflect on. And look, if this deep dive has sparked your interest, we really encourage you to explore further. Maybe seek out the book itself, LESYA Key to Kaivalya, or other texts on Jain philosophy. There's clearly a wealth of insight there.